Hi, welcome to the AIM on MS&T podcast. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, first off, welcome. Second, AIM stands for Academia, Industry, and Military, which are the main sectors that make up Central Florida's modeling, simulation, and training community. During our podcast, we talk with different leaders in this community. We also hit on all the cool and innovative things their organizations are doing, trends that affect the MS&T field as a whole, and keep you up to date with what's going on. If you're not a part of the modeling and simulation community, we hope to share some insights about this important sector of Orlando's economy, which ranks just behind the theme park and hospitality industries. This podcast is brought to you in part by Axiom AI. Axiom's multi-model AI models outperformed Fortune 500 companies to win the DoD's AI Antex Challenge. Visit Axiom in booth 2526 at IITSEC to see how they empower warfighters by boosting training and mission success. I'm your host, Kate Finkel, and in today's episode, we have something very special for you. Mary Trier, President of Capital Communications, will be taking over this episode as our guest host for today. So, without further ado, the floor is all yours.
Hi, I'm Mary Trier, and I'll be this episode's host as we talk with Vice Admiral Sean Buck, U.S. Navy retired, and who is now the President of National Training and Simulation Association as of a little earlier this year. I wanted to welcome you, and it's our pleasure to have you as a guest on AIM on MS&T podcast. So welcome, and I also want to recognize your over 40 years in the U.S. Navy. Really admire our people who serve in uniform. So thank you for serving and leading the men and women of the U.S. Navy. So before we jump into MS&T and realizing that every mission that you had and every place that you were stationed probably holds lots of memories for you. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your career, some of the highlights, one of those special stories you might pass on to your family?
Sure. There's so many. I guess I'll preface it by saying if I could rewind the clock and if I could rewind my body clock, I would be proud and privileged to do it all over again. The Navy was very good to me. It was very good to my family. It was quite an adventure and a real opportunity to serve our country in the cloth of our nation. I would say probably how I ended my career these last 4.5 years serving as the superintendent of the U.S. Naval Academy was probably the highlight of my career. While it wasn't operational, I wasn't flying airplanes and chasing bad guys, I had the greatest opportunity I could have ever imagined having, and that is to provide an education to a very large cadre of students that attend the Naval Academy. And I also had a big part to play in the development of all the future leaders of our country. And it was a true honor and privilege to be chosen to be the superintendent.
That's amazing. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about your time there. What is the Navy bringing in? I know the academies all bring in the best and brightest in our nation, but is there a specific skill set that you were seeing as they were coming in?
We're privileged to have great selectivity. The service academies are still a sought-after place to go get an education and to get a really great start on an opportunity to serve our country. We have a selectivity of about 15 to 1. 15 applicants to every available slot that we have. So as you said, Mary, we get some very fine young men and women that come to the service academies, and the student body kept getting better and better. I was always asked this question, well, what's different about these group of young men and women that come compared to like when I came 40 years ago or even to the group maybe from 10 or 15 years ago? And it's their awareness. It's the awareness of what they're getting into, what they're volunteering to do to serve their country, and the commitment to be part of something much bigger than themselves. They bring an uncanny level of maturity. And I think, what's different from when you and I were making this decision as we were departing high school to go to college and to become a professional in some regard, it's the information age. They have so many resources available to them to make a more informed decision. And so therefore, the kids that we get, they have a less proclivity to quit. So when they come, they've made that initial commitment, whereas my classmates years ago, we weren't really sure what we were getting involved in. And sometimes it overwhelmed some of my classmates, and they said, hey, this is not for me. I'm going to leave and I'm not going to finish up, which was a real shame, because that may have taken a slot of a young man or woman who had worked harder to be better informed about what they were volunteering for. But it's the biggest difference of all is the maturity and how well they're informed about what they're committing to.
Yeah, but I see that across the board. Our young people are so confident. And I think you hit the nail on the head that it's the information age. They have knowledge right at their fingertips, and that's awesome. And I love what you said about they quit less.
Well, as taxpayers, it's service academies are a very expensive way of generating a military leader, but the return on investment is tremendous. Mm-hmm. And when I can go back and present my budget requests to Congress, who gives the Navy the money, and then the Navy gives me the money to run the Naval Academy, I can with great confidence tell them that the return on investment is still very, very worth it from the quality leader that we produce and the number of men and women that we keep that stay the course the whole 4 years in commission on time, very successfully.
I think you see that across the board with the senior enlisteds also.
Yes.
The Navy chiefs and those people that lead the enlisted corps as well. They're
absolutely
bringing in higher quality, and the training is superb.
Absolutely. And it's attractive to them once they learn about us mm-hmm. to join either as a commissioned officer or as enlisted. Once they learn about the opportunities that they're going to be given and the quality of the training, the quality of the education, and the quality of the service and the men and women that they get to serve with, they want to come.
And they get that trust also for their brothers and sisters in arms.
Yes, they do.
They know that they're fully trained and ready.
Yes, they do.
It's really awesome. Can you talk a little bit about the recruiting efforts for the Navy? I know in recent years, all of our services are having challenges. And I think it's really important for young men and women to understand what that lifestyle offers and how are we doing with our recruiting in the Navy.
Well, Mary, any discussion about recruiting should be always paired with some comments and dialogue about retention. Recruiting has been a challenge for all of the services in the last few years. That may be a result of many different dynamics going on. I would suggest over 2 decades of fighting a war. The Desert Wars probably made the country a little bit weary of military service and fighting wars to defend our nation. Those of us that have made the commitment to serve in uniform know that no matter how hard it is or how weary we may be, it's a very noble cause and it's a needed cause, and we can never give up the effort. But that's not necessarily the dialogue at families' dinner tables. With their young ones who are deciding whether to join or not to join. I would suggest that also the age-old dynamic of when the economy is strong or the economy is weak, there's ebbs and flows on recruiting and retention. The attractiveness to either join initially or the attractiveness to stay in and stay the course when it becomes difficult on both the service member and their families, the sacrifices that are made. My hat's off to the services recruiting efforts now. We have turned the corner. Recruiting is on the upswing for a lot of the services, maybe not all the way across the board. I can speak to the Navy and the Marine Corps, part of the naval team. Recruiting is doing much better now. We put a very strong effort in marketing ourselves and telling our story better so that the American public knows who we are. Those kids can be more informed about their decision to join. Moms and dads aren't as concerned about their sons or daughters joining as they may have been in these last 20 years of fighting the Desert Wars. So we've turned the corner. Now, with that said, we got to make sure that we keep those that join us and retain them. And in the Navy, we have a saying that we may recruit the individual sailor, but we retain the family. a very, very large percentage of Navy sailors are married. And kind of stereotypically, if you're married, you probably will go on the journey of raising a family also. So you'll have children, which complicates the dynamic and the sacrifice of the entire family. And we're working just as hard to retain them so that we can reduce the pressure on the recruiting force to not have to continually bring in so many because it's too fast of a revolving door. So it was a crisis. It was a recent crisis, and I would suggest the crisis is being resolved.
That's wonderful. As someone that hasn't served in uniform, but I have family that has, I'm just so proud of the people who make that commitment. Not just, like you said, the families also make a commitment. And I'm proud of all of them. It's really awesome. And what does that have to do with the MS&T industry? Well, I think just about every soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine that we recruit today will put their hands on simulation and training products that we in our industry develop and field for them to become prepared for their missions.
Yes, they will, in spades.
Mm-hmm.
Big part of recruiting is prior to a young man or woman making the decision to join what they think would be a high-tech Navy or a high-tech Marine Corps or high-tech Air Force or Army, they're digital natives. They have been born from the day they were born. Their world is consumed by technology to either ease some of the struggles of life, to make them more informed, better educated, have more fun, but they're very comfortable around technology. And then all of a sudden they join, I'll speak for the Navy, my service, they join and they go to sea on ships across the horizon. And maybe that technology is not up to the standards of the technology they had on their hands when they were ashore. And the minute they pull away from the pier and get underway, they find themselves could be 10, 15, 20 years with outdated technology behind. And that is not very satisfying. So to tie that into the modeling, simulation, and training industry, what you all are providing for us to bring technology, put it into our hands, train us and make us comfortable with that technology, and to even teach the old folks like me, get us up to speed with the technology, that will help with retention, because that sailor or that Marine will then stay the course because they're satisfied with how they're equipped, how they're trained, how they're prepared. And then that matches their patriotism and their commitment to serve. But if they were given less than optimal technology, they're going to be dissatisfied. They'll leave because the outside world looks more attractive to them and can provide better technology and a better lifestyle. We're very cognizant of that dynamic in the retention side of the house. So once again, hats off to everyone involved in the MS&T industry to help us military folks provide a better life for a sailor, Marine, airman, guardsman, soldier.
That's right. Now we're going to switch a little bit over to talk about your role as the president of NTSA. And coming into that role, you're bringing all of your experience and your leadership, and you're coming into this organization. What's your vision for the next 5 years?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't see this opportunity coming. Sometimes I'll ask the question, did you find NTSA or did NTSA find you? Well, NTSA found me and offered me an opportunity to present myself to be considered to be the president of the association. And I couldn't have been a luckier person than to have been identified and being given that opportunity. I come from 40 years of being a consumer and using all the goodness that NTSA has helped corral and matchmake between inventors and innovators out there, matching them up with the government, me, my team, the Navy team, who needed things, but I never knew where those cool things came from. And now I'm on this side of the fence as a person who can help facilitate the matchmaking between those with the requirement, the services, and those who innovate and dabble in that technology and can provide really awesome solutions. And I couldn't be more proud to be that matchmaker. So what's my near-term vision? What I still have witnessed in my first 4 months is it is still very difficult to break through the barriers of the military acquisition system. I think I want to do due diligence and work really hard to continue to break down that barrier, because there's lots of people in our MS&T industry who are hungry to provide and hungry to invent, but they don't know how to talk to the people that need their stuff. And it's somewhat frustrating that this has been a persistent problem. And now I feel as though with my reputation, the trust that people have had in me for years and years, and my willingness and ability to passionately advocate for people, I'm very proud to break down those barriers and open up doors and make those connections. So that's a very simple but important near-term goal that I have in the next 3 to 5 years. And I think once we make that easier and easier and easier, boy, the sky's the limit on how we can equip and prepare the military.
Absolutely. And that is critical. And you're in a great position to do that with your, just recently coming out of the leadership of the Navy and being able to bridge that gap. Having said that, we have a lot of opportunities to create an environment to put the military together with those inventors and innovative people. And I know that your staff does a lot of events, but the one that's coming up that we really want to hone in on is the IITSEC Conference. And I think that's one of the great opportunities where you're going to get these people in the same room and be able to break down some of those barriers. Do you see anything different, or do you see, as we approach IITSEC, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about that we continue, the NTSA team and our huge army of volunteers continue to respond to the surveys that are filled out by the attendees who actually experienced IITSEC as either just an attendee or an exhibitor or a presenter or a panelist or a speaker. We continue to look at those and try to deliver the use of technology to make their experience better and better and better, because we don't want them to just come for one IITSEC. We want them to become part of the family and the iterative effort of they contribute and people contribute to them. Some cool changes that have happened. I innocently ask these questions. What are we doing, or what have we done to make IITSEC 2024 better than just last year? And if I may, if you go to our website and begin to plan your own experience and your own journey at IITSEC, you're going to see a bot called Blue, B-L-U. It's a little blue bot in the corner of your screen, and Blue can answer any question that you have about IITSEC. And as the new guy, I have been talking to Blue a lot so that I don't necessarily have to cause disruption to my staff asking all of my new guy questions. Mm-hmm. And Blue has been very accurate, very responsive, and trust me, listening audience, if you go to Blue, they're going to make your experience at IITSEC in Orlando in December of 2024 much better. We've also employed a mobile application that I've seen at some of our sister friends' conferences and events. It's very helpful because we all have our mobile devices in our hands these days, and it helps them navigate the show floor. It helps them navigate the schedule better so that they don't miss any of the events that they hope to get to on the days that they participate in IITSEC. We also have it's a really neat feature of the registration website. If you'll take a little bit of time and tell us about yourself as you register to attend, we are creating personal personas for you. We get to know a little bit about you, and then we will tailor your background, your expertise, and your goals and desires. We will tailor a recommended journey for you over 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days at IITSEC. And that's exciting. It's being test-driven this year, and our intentions are to ask a lot of feedback from attendees, what was good or bad about that, and by next year to implement AI in the whole registration process, and that persona will have exacting precision to give a good experience at IITSEC 2025. So try us out this year, try it out, give us feedback, positive or negative feedback, and we promise you we'll work to make it better. And then the last thing that we've tried to improve upon is one of the categories of special events called the next big thing. As I understand it, last year we devoted about a day and a half to talk about the next big things. And this year we've expanded that. And we've doubled the number of events committed to talking about AI, which is their focus. And we'll be having special events and opportunities all 4 days of IITSEC.
That is really awesome. And it's a Navy year.
It is a naval year.
Yes.
The two services in charge of this year's IITSEC, the Navy and the Marine Corps, our naval team. Boy, I couldn't be more proud of their effort and the attention they're putting into it.
I've been attending IITSEC for about 30 years, and I've looked at papers and helped select papers. I've done from the government side, and I've had a lot of experiences. So these things are really exciting. I have learned over the years about the group of people that come together and volunteer to help make IITSEC better than it was last year. And that's a recurring theme since I've been involved. Mm-hmm. We have to make it better than it was last year.
Mary, that volunteer force that's associated with our small yet high-performing team at NTSA is remarkable. I've been part of many, many, many teams in my military service, and I have never been part of such a large, dedicated, focused, and loyal volunteer team than who helps us with IITSEC. Each time I'm asked the question, what is your first impression? What's the greatest thing that you've seen in your new job? It's this volunteer force. And it's the quality of the leadership at the top of the volunteer force. And it's the dedication and thoroughness of each and every person who gives us their most important resource, which is their time. And as you just said, it's not just 1 year. These volunteers, like yourself, have been coming back for 10, 20, 30 years of IITSEC with a commitment to make it better and better and better. And that's remarkable. And it's somewhat intimidating to me too, because I believe one of my most important charges is to nurture and care for that volunteer force and make sure that they're appreciated, make sure they're loved and respected, and make sure they're equipped to do their volunteer job. And I find that easy. That's what I like to do. I like to take care of people, take care of teams, and then be their biggest cheerleader and their biggest advocate.
I can't get off that topic without commenting on your staff here at NTSA and your leaders. And I think you recently told me you only have a handful.
We are a team of 7, and I'm number 7. And
that's pretty awesome.
And there are the mighty 6 below me, who carry a lot of weight. They were hired for a primary duty, but each and every one of them can carry on 3, 4, 5 duties. They have each other's backs. They do their jobs very, very well. And you and I well know who's the leader of that whole charge, and it's Debbie Langelier. So my hat is off to Debbie. She's been at this for a long time. She's really good at it. People love her, but more importantly, people respect her for her commitment and her ability to pull off a really good show year after year. So that's what I call my small yet high-performing team led by Debbie.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I can't think of anyone in the industry that would disagree with what you just said. You have an awesome team, and Debbie, she's been at it for years, and she's doing a fantastic job leading all of us.
Yes, she has.
We talked about a lot of things, but how about some football?
Absolutely. Bring it.
What do you think? I mean, I don't know a lot about football, but I sometimes phone a friend. I know that the Navy and the Army both are undefeated so far.
So as we record this podcast, Mary, and it will be telecast and provided to our listeners here in a couple of weeks, their records will change a little bit but today, as we speak, Navy is 5-0, Army is 6-0. Navy had a bye week, so they'll play catch up after coming back onto the field. This is the last time that Army and Navy had this good of a start to a football season was in 1944. And that's back when Army and Navy bounced back and forth of being national champions in college football, producing Heisman Trophy winners on both schools. So it's a very, very exciting amongst both all the Army fans and the Navy fans. And this year, the Army-Navy game will be not only a wonderful representation of our services, and that's why we call it America's game, but there's also going to be some real high-quality football played. But let there be no doubt at all who's going to win this game.
Well,
and it's going to be the Navy.
I probably will get the last word, and I'm betting on the Army this time.
I know you are. I think, as always, no matter who the better team is, who's down on their game, it's always a nail biter, and it is a game played with passion on both sides, and it comes down always to the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game. It's always a close score. It'll come down to some of those basic things we hear about football. Who makes the least mistakes? Who has the least number of turnovers? Does the weather, good weather or bad weather, favor one team over the other? But it'll come down truly to the final second as to who played the game with more passion. And I would suggest to you the United States Navy is ready to step up and win this game.
Okay. Army will be there, strong.
Navy by 1 score, either by a field goal or a touchdown, by just 1 score.
Yeah, I'm betting that we probably would agree on 1 score, but like we probably disagree on who will have that.
Well, here's the bottom line: go Army, go Navy.
Yes.
1 team, 1 fight.
Amen.
We're in this together.
Yep, we agree. Thank you so much for doing the podcast, and I love what you talked about today. And we'll have you back again if you'd like to do it.
Sure,
again.
I'd love to. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to seeing everybody down in Orlando the first week of December.
Me too. Go Army.
Jumping back in, I want to thank our guest, Vice Admiral Sean Buck and Mary Trier, for hosting this episode. For everyone listening, to keep you up to date on future events in the modeling and simulation community, check out our website, teamorlando.org. You'll also find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook for more recent news and upcoming events. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode of AIM on MS&T or being a featured guest, please reach out to Team Orlando News. The link will be below. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to follow the AIM on MS&T podcast on your platform of choice, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!